Hi, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to go over my 6 favorite tropes in books. I wanted it to be a top 5, but I really couldn't narrow it down. The 6th one just kind of needed to be included also because it is one that I love as much as the other 5. The first one I'm going to talk about I feel like is extremely popular, and that is enemies to lovers. But I really prefer when they are like actually people who hate each other, and then you get to see that slow turning of the tide where they're kind of like begrudgingly nice to each other and like slowly start warming up and like working together, and then you kind of see like maybe some like a little crush happening, and then they like get together, and it's a very slow paced, well developed timeline. And I think my love for this trope comes from Beauty and the Beast, because she obviously hates him at first because he kidnaps her dad and is like threatening her father, and then she takes his place, but she's a prisoner. And I love that we get to see them like actually hating each other at first and just butting heads and fighting and yelling at each other, and then there's this kind of pivotal moment where he saves her from the wolves, and then after they're kind of like meh, 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 like begrudgingly like getting along, and then they slowly warm up to each other and fall in love. This also is done really well in Pride and Prejudice. My favorite of the movies is the 2005 Keira Knightley version, and the way that she and Mr. Darcy hate each other so much at the beginning is so funny to me, because by the end they're like madly in love with each other. I also think this is done really well in Six of Crows. This might spoil some of the plot, I guess, but there are enemies to lovers in here between Nina and Matthias, and the way that their story develops is probably one of my favorite enemies to lovers situation, because he was bred by his people to hate her kind, to hate Grisha so much and be just like really prejudiced against them and just hunt them down and kill them basically. And she kind of shows him like, we are also people, and she changes his mind about an entire group of people, but she does it in a way that like obviously he falls in love with her, and it's just so good. They are probably one of my favorite enemies to lovers examples, and yeah, they are perfection on a pedestal. Couldn't ask for a better enemies to lovers representation in a book. Another trope that I love is slow burn yearning. I love when there's such drama in the way that two characters like both like each other or are interested in each other, but the other one doesn't know, and so each character is like yearning and pining for the other one. And I feel like there is a little bit of yearning in Pride and Prejudice when Mr. Darcy realizes that he's attracted to Elizabeth, especially in the 2005 version. That hand flex scene is like the epitome of like just unspoken yearning and like he like unrequited love in that moment. And like I think it's right around the time where she's starting to like him back, so they're both doing a little bit of that yearning for each other before they're like confident enough to admit how they're feeling. There is a little bit of yearning in Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and this is like extremely slow burn, so the yearning in here is a little more subtle, but you do see a certain character yearning after another one. I also feel like there's really great yearning in The Night Circus, and again, this is more of a subtle yearning because these two characters don't actually know each other in person at all. They only know each other by witnessing the other one's magical creations, and the yearning in this one is more of a sense of like admiration and respect for the talent that the other one has, but it does like grow into a yearning, and so this one's really great. There is also a smidge of yearning in The Lost Story. This one I can't really describe without spoiling it for you, but there is a character in here who basically was in love with another character at one point and still is, but they're not together anymore. And that character, just every time we get a POV inside of their head, like the yearning is just top tier, so like visceral and subtle at the same time, but like it just felt so real, and you felt so bad for this person because you can see like that they want this other person so badly and they just can't have them, so you're like, oh, feel bad for you. And yeah, this one is also great. Another trope that I love is stabby women. Women with swords, women who are like aggressive and violent and just want to kill people. A great example of that is Gideon from Gideon the Ninth. Gideon and her sword are like two peas in a pod. You literally can't have one without the other. They are attached at the hip. They are one and the same. And I love Gideon so much. If you haven't read it, lesbians in space, there's necromancy. Gideon's a muscle mommy, so check it out. Lots of stabbing. Another great stabby woman is Marcella from Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. I read Vicious by V.E. Schwab for the first time, I think 7 years ago, and then I reread it, I think at the beginning of last year, and I read the sequel at the end of last year. And I wasn't expecting to love the sequel as much as I did because I only gave Vicious like a 3.5. I thought it was good, but I didn't think it was great. I liked it for what it was, but like I'm not really so into superhero or like, you know, hero power kind of stuff. And even though it was a different take on it, I didn't love it, but I did love this one. I loved where the story went. I think V.E. Schwab's writing has improved drastically since Vicious came out because it has been, what, like 10 years? But Marcella is a new character in this one that we don't get in the first book, and I won't spoil any of the plot for you, but I will just tell you, I would die for her. I would literally do anything she tells me to. She wants to kill men and I'm on board. I'm there. How can I help? And probably my favorite stabby woman of all time is Orca from The Shadow of the Gods. Orca is literally like the baddest bitch in town. She is a mother and a wife, and she, above all else, is a warrior. And I think that she uses her warrior nature to be like a better wife and a better mother. And in this book, at the very beginning, like not a spoiler, but her husband gets murdered and her son gets kidnapped. And when I tell you the rampage that Orca goes on, incredible. There is so much stabbing in here from her, and I just absolutely love it. Orca is a perfect example of I support women's rights and women's wrongs. Anything she does, I'm here. I'm ready to back her up. She could murder like 20 innocent people and I'd just be like, oh, okay, thanks for letting me watch. On to the next thing. I love her. She's a badass. She stabs first and asks questions later, and she doesn't take anyone's bullshit, and I absolutely love that about her. She's very driven, very violent, and she's probably like one of the greatest characters, or one of my favorite characters of all time. Okay, and in my top 3, we have revenge plots. I love a revenge plot. I love at the beginning of a book, like in The Shadow of the Gods, where there is a character who has like a terrible thing happen to them, or I guess their family, and the character's entire motivation is just getting revenge. Like they just want to kill the person responsible for this, and nothing can stop them, nothing can get in their way. Another great example of this is Tau Tafari from The Rage of Dragons. Again, very similar concept at the beginning, but entirely different stories. But these are two main characters who set off to get revenge, and there is nothing that anyone can say or do to talk them out of it. You can't talk sense into them. The only sense that they see is vengeance, and I'm here for that. I love a character who holds a grudge. I love a character who knows what they want and will stop at nothing to get it, even if that is murder. And I don't know what that says about me as a person. And my second favorite trope of all time, and my second favorite trope of all time is found family. This is in literally so many books that I have read and loved. There's found family in Six of Crows. There's found family in the Vicious duology. There's found family in The Rage of Dragons. There's found family in The Shadow of the Gods. There's found family in The Lost Story. And these are only just recent examples. But I think what I love most about found family is that usually it's a group of characters who are coming from a place where they feel like they don't belong, or they feel like maybe their like role in that place isn't needed anymore, or they're unimportant. And it's just a group of misfits who are looking for purpose or looking for their place in the world, and they kind of form this close-knit friendship that takes the place of what a family should be. And I love this in books because not every family is like a good family. Not every person has two amazing parents, and not every person has like a bunch of siblings to surround themselves with, or like extended family aren't always really that close. So I love this trope just because I just find it so heartwarming, and I feel like me and my friends are a very much like found family. Like they feel more like sisterly than friends. My very, very close friends, that is. Obviously not every friend is gonna be as close as family, but I just love it. It's just so heartwarming, and I think it's so sweet when you have people who are not related at all but would do anything for each other and just come together and make their own place in the world beside each other and like help support each other, whether that's support each other by doing bad things like murder or thievery, or support each other by doing good things, or like, you know, fighting against the bad guys. But whatever that is, I don't know, it just really gets under my skin in a good way. Like it's just so heartwarming when you see all these characters just coming together from different backgrounds who form a bond and love each other and support each other. And it's a trope that I will literally never get tired of. So if you have recommendations for more found family, please leave those down below. And my number one favorite trope that I do not see enough of, and it is a fucking crime. Your truck is so loud. Is Here Comes the Cavalry. And this trope, if you don't know what that is basically like when there's a battle going on and like the ranks are dwindling, and you're like the support of the main characters is just getting taken out left and right, and you're down to like a couple of characters, right? And they're just back to back fighting for their fucking life, and they have literally no hope left. And then another group of soldiers comes and is like turns the tide and like evens the score in the battle. And I literally don't know what it is about this trope, but every fucking time I sob, I cry every time. Literally talking about it, I'm getting goosebumps and my eyes are watering because I'm just thinking of all of the times I've read it or seen it in a movie, and I don't know why, but it gets me every time. I think it's just that like that hopelessness being so like visceral, and the characters are just literally like accepting death. They're like, okay, well fuck it, if we're gonna go out, like we're gonna go out with a bang. And then they have this like hallelujah moment where another group of soldiers, or you know, another group of warriors, whatever, like comes to save them or even the score and like make it a closer battle versus like a slaughter. I don't know why, but it's literally my favorite thing. And I'm going to talk about a book that has this, and it is kind of spoilery to tell you that it has this, but that book is The Lord of the Rings. So if you haven't read or seen the movies, sorry about that. I'm going to just hold up book one. But at the Battle of Helm's Deep, they are trapped. They are overwhelmingly outnumbered by the orcs and orcai and the trolls and whatever the fuck else, but they are fighting tooth and nail. They literally don't want to die. So they are trapped. Everything is hopeless until Gandalf shows up. And I believe it's different in the book than it is in the movie. I believe the people that come with him are a different group. I could be mistaken. But in the movie, he shows up with the riders of the Rohirrim, which is from the kingdom where he like freed King Theoden from the Dark Man's like hold, basically. Like the riders like crest the hill, and like our main group of people like see them coming, and they just have this like sigh of relief where they're like, oh my god, like they fucking came to help us. And then they get this renewed vigor to be able to fight back in the battle, because obviously like they've been fighting for hours and hours and hours, and they're tired, they're outnumbered, all of their allies and comrades are dying around them, they're losing hope, they are trapped, they can't get out. and then these riders of the Rohirrim show up and like start attacking the enemies from the back, and it like gives them this renewed hope that comes through, and every single time it gets me every time. I love it so much. And there are other books that do this. I don't know if it's spoilery to tell you. I felt fine talking about it in Lord of the Rings because at this point it's so old, and if you didn't know, there's a lot of battles in here. But yeah, Here Comes the Cavalry is probably my favorite trope, and I don't see it enough. So this is one that I'm like, if you know any books that include this trope, I need you to tell me down below. I'm not asking, I'm begging. Tell me down below if you've read any books with my favorite trope of all time, and that is Here Comes the Cavalry. I've read it a few times. I read it, I think, twice last year, which was a nice surprise, and I know that it's in Lord of the Rings. There's definitely a lack of this in my life. I do think this actually happens in The Wheel of Time. I've only read the first 3 books, but I want to say that it happens in book 2 or 3. It's been so long since I've read them, but I'm pretty sure it happens in The Wheel of Time as well. And I love it. I love it so much. Best trope ever. There's not enough of it. Please tell me if you know of some that I don't know about. I would love to know what your favorite book trope is down in the comments. And if you made it this far, leave a ring emoji for Lord of the Rings. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye!